Alright guys, welcome to another video. Today we will look at my complete Google Ads strategy from A to Z that made over 100 million for our clients in the last couple of years. Super simple framework. I will keep it as simple as possible here for the sake of the video. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. So you can structure our core framework or the whole scaling process into three core phases. You have a testing phase, you have an early push phase where you try to push as aggressively as possible the moment you have some momentum coming in, and then you have the scaling and optimization phase, which is a bit smoother already. You have some momentum, you're getting nice profits, and you just tweak little things, optimize the inefficiencies, push what's working, testing new things. So that's where you want to be, right? In stage 3, where it's just smooth sailing and keep going basically. So the first phase, testing phase, super simple. It's basically a very simple and efficient setup. The goal is to gathering some initial data, right? And just make sure everything is on the right track, checking early performance metrics. Are the first few purchases coming in? How does it look like? Just gathering some data. We basically, like discussed in previous videos, we start with one main shopping campaign first, PMX feed only, all products or your hero products, depending on the niche as well, right? It's like, it's not black and white, it depends, but usually it's like one campaign, all products, or your hero product or a set of hero products. Basically, the bottom line is no overcomplicated segmentation yet. Keep it simple for the start. Later on, we will structure it more effectively. Just a small budget for the start. You don't want to start with bigger budgets, even if you are, obviously it depends, like if you're already crushing your tomato and you have big budgets there and a lot of data coming in, you can start with a bigger budget, but usually you should start with a smaller budget because the algorithm is messy in the beginning, CPC is too high, like it's not super efficient yet. So you want to start with a small budget, gather some data first, right? That's why we said keep it simple, keep it efficient, check the early performance metrics. Just gathering some data first for 1-2 weeks, getting the first few purchases in. Keep in mind, you're not trying to make any profit here yet. Keep it efficient, of course, but that's not the phase where you get whatever 25-30% profit margin, right? Like you're not optimizing on profits here yet. You're trying to find you can say some early signals, right? Some momentum that's coming in that you can push. Important in the beginning is that a lot of people forget is clean tracking. Of course, you cannot start with auto tracking because we said we want to gather some initial data, right? So you have to make sure you actually get the data into the ad account as well. Clean feed, everything structured nicely, the product listing optimized perfectly. That's it, right? Keep it super simple. Clean feed, clean listings, proper conversion tracking, and start lean with the budget, collect some data. Then immediately after that, and that's like the biggest phase, right? The most important phase as well. Phase 1 is relatively short, like we said, 1-2 weeks. Then we move immediately into phase 2 the moment we get some momentum coming in. And that's the most important phase. It's the early push phase. Like we said, the moment you have some traction, you try to push very aggressively actually and try to use the momentum, gather some data quicker, right? You have the first few purchases coming in, maybe like 1-2 products that have potential to be a winner. You want to push that, right? You want to go to this like 1K revenue a day mark pretty quickly. That's usually where we see some consistency coming in. So you want to push to that, scale, gather more data more aggressively. So in that phase, like we have here as well, it's very common as well that we sometimes double budgets, or increase quite aggressively in short periods of time to really, really push if the performance is good. You will still have a lot of inconsistencies in this very early phase. So that's normal. Keep that in mind. Like the consistency comes in later in phase 3. But you basically just want to use the momentum, try to push as aggressively as possible, because the higher the budget is, right, the more you push, the more data you can gather as well within a short period of time, which speeds up the whole process. Try to push super early on and gather a lot of data. All right, and one thing that's super important in that phase are also like obviously the early optimizations, still the same thing that we discussed before, clean feed, product listing, a lot of product testing, optimizing your current listings, and then also don't over optimize. That's like a thing as well, right? Don't like tweak everything all the time. That will disrupt the algorithm too much and you cannot learn properly. Just like little things, observe it for some time, see where you can optimize some things, you know, depending on the early performance metrics that you see as well, and then like tweak it a little bit here and there. But one thing that we want to do early on from the Google Ads side of things is create a high performer, low performer split. So basically we want to take out everything that doesn't work, because we said we have one campaign, all products, right? We keep it simple for the start. But we want to take out everything that doesn't work and doesn't perform very early on, and we are quite aggressive with that, depending on the niche, because usually we test a lot of products. I have a lot of clients in the fashion niche, jewelry, so we have quite a big catalog. So we want to take out everything that doesn't work very early on and focus on what works, what brings in the performance, right? But we don't cut it completely, because like I said, we are quite aggressive. We cut it almost too early. So we still want to give it some time and the chance to develop in a more controlled environment. So we push it into a low performer standard shopping campaign with a low budget, and standard shopping works quite well with low budget as well. So you can keep it controlled, you keep it efficient, quite stable. And there you can still give those products some time. Usually sometimes they develop quite nicely there, and if the performance is great, they get pushed back to the high performer campaign, right? So that's an automatic split. We use our own internal tool for that to label those products based on the performance, and also like to push them back and forth depending on performance, and keeping things super efficient. So really nice. And then once you are a bit more stable, scaling up, going to around that level, you start to scale in like smaller steps, right? 10-20%, not per day actually, like that's a bit inaccurate. 10-20% on one day, but every 3 to 4 days, right? So you always want to give it some time before you scale again. Like, don't make stupid changes too quickly, too early. Then phase 3, that's the fun phase, right? Like we said, scaling and optimization. The goal, like we said, taking what's working now, because we obviously got some momentum, and just push that further, making sure we cut the inefficiencies, like we said, still early on. So it's the same thing as the early push phase, just at a higher level, a bit more sophisticated, a bit quicker and more dynamic as well, because we have bigger budgets now. So we can move faster, we can test things faster, and we also add some more campaigns as well. But yeah, one of the most common mistakes is like people try to overcomplicate things now, because they're like, oh, it's working and we have like bigger budget, let's do this, let's do that, and suddenly they have 50 campaigns in their account, like a campaign for this winner, a campaign for this bestseller, and like you basically kill the whole account with over-segmentation. So don't fall into the trap at any of the stage. So where it's still like one of the biggest mistakes I see. Like always like structuring like this and that, and you have like so many campaigns and it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any sense on Google, it doesn't make any sense on Meta to over structure it like that, you know. You need to keep it relatively consolidated. You need a lot of data within one campaign for it to even learn properly, you know. Don't over segment it. We keep it still quite simple, like we said, by performance, depending on a niche, depending on your catalog, by profit margin eventually. You know, if you have very different profit margins depending on your product categories, you might want to actually split that up, because then it doesn't really make sense to keep it in the same campaign and optimize for ROAS, because the same ROAS for the different products here, right, can have a completely different outcome on the profit margin. So that's quite something. And then what we like to use are booster campaigns. So we use booster for zombie products that basically didn't get a lot of budget yet, so they are not even properly tested, or booster campaigns for new products. So whenever we add new products, we give them like a little boost within that campaign, so it gets some traction in the main campaign quicker, right? So like we said, still feed tuning, that always stays the same. You always want to check what can we optimize here, there, any major red flags, any major green flags that stand out as well, right? Like anything where I'm like, all right, maybe we want to double down more on that, right? Things like that. Still kill losers fast. At this level, you're quite big. Be aware of seasonal adjustments. any changes, any holidays, so you're aware of that and you can optimize in time, especially when you operate on a bigger budget, so you keep that in mind. And from time to time, that's quite an important step as well, especially if you have big product catalogs. We tend to be more radical and definitely more aggressive every 4 to 8 weeks to keep things efficient. So at this stage, we also completely pause products sometimes. If we see, all right, they don't perform in a high performer campaign, they don't make sense in a low performer campaign, it just doesn't work, whatever we try to optimize, at one point you have to be like, all right, this doesn't work, done, right? You exclude it from the campaigns completely. That's super important, like, so you don't waste any further budget on that, especially when you start to scale up, right? And you have bigger budgets. Sometimes it's quite easy to like overspend on those low performers quite a bit. All right, the real question now is, what are the next steps to scale further and keep optimizing further also for better profit margin? Because we are at a good level now, right? We got some momentum, we are more stable, more consistent at this level now, so we want to keep pushing further. The key next steps that we always identify is, at this point, we also want to add demand gen and go more for a full funnel presence, omni-channel presence, right? Not just shopping, PMax, which is obviously always the main campaign, but it's also quite limited, right? With shopping, you're always like very much in this lower funnel segment, and it's not scalable. It's only scalable to a certain degree, sometimes more, sometimes less. But if you're only in that last segment of the funnel where people are already actively looking for your solution, it's super competitive, right? Everybody wants to be there, and you're missing out on going a bit broader, making sure you get more reach. And we love demand gen for that, because you can buy a lot of traffic, a lot of reach, good traffic from potential customers that are in the discovery phase. Back then, that campaign that was even called discovery campaign or something like that, because you could reach your potential customers, especially in that discovery phase, right? But then the term demand generation became more popular, so like they rebranded it like that effectively. But yeah, we love it because like you can get that reach, right? You can reach them in that stage. You can grow very effectively with that because you can buy so much traffic quite cheaply still. A lot of people don't use, a lot of advertisers don't use it effectively yet. And we also like it for retargeting quite a bit, because if we do PMax feed only, right, which works quite well, and that's our main campaign, we kind of like miss out a little bit on the retargeting. So you still have it automatically included with PMax feed only as well. But sometimes, you know, it's not perfect yet. You're not on all properties. You're not doing anything on Meta here right now, right? Unless you do. I mean, that's good. So that's where we want to go a bit in that stage, right? Add that full funnel presence. Go actually omni-channel. If you're only on Google, definitely add Pinterest, definitely add Meta. See where you can grow even further. And also all those channels, they kind of push each other, right? So it's like rocket fuel. If you are able to combine it properly. Some of my biggest accounts still, like, they are never just on Google. We always do Pinterest at least to like have a bit of retargeting, get the traffic in the upper funnel, right? Buying it quite cheaply, catching it later on. So it helps to like grow the overall scaling engine. Definitely like the Meta Google combi is still the best, you know. You can do Meta only, you can do Google only, but if you combine it properly, it's definitely the best. It's like rocket fuel. And then we definitely, in terms of scaling, more linear, 10-20%, like we said before, every 3 to 4 days. Performance is good, no rapid changes, not being too emotional, giving it some time as well, you know, because at this point we have more consistency, we test a lot of things, try to push and scale further. So sometimes, you know, like 10-20% at this level is quite a bit in terms of budget. So you have to give it some time, letting it adjust, see how it develops, and then just take it from there. So to break it down, and that's how it basically looks like, super simple, so you can see it more visual, right? That's how a typical campaign split would look like, something that we actually use for most of our clients, because it's just like that works for everybody. It's a feed only high performer PMax. So basically all the products except the low performers that we take out here. Depending on the type of niche and the type of store, if you have like a couple of hero products, then just that, of course. Like, we don't want to like advertise some random accessories or like some cross sales, right? Doesn't really make sense, but you get the picture. Sometimes even not feed only, but with assets. if it's niche where creatives are more scalable, like for example supplements, cosmetic products, like usually tends to work a bit better than feed only. And that's also usually a type of niche where the client is quite active on Meta already, so we can get like the full funnel presence a bit better with, like, if you use assets, right? But yeah, just to give you some ideas, but basically don't overcomplicate it. Feed only, high performer PMax. Then we have the standard shopping low performer campaign, like I said before, where we give them a small budget. It's more controlled and isolated, and we don't exclude it completely yet, right? So we try to develop those products in a more controlled setting, basically. That's it. And then the standard shopping booster campaigns, like we said before, for the zombie products, for new products, to push them, give them a bit of a head start, basically, you know. Obviously, brand search, that's something we set up right from the start in this phase 1 testing phase. Even if there are not a lot of people yet that are looking for your brand, we want to make sure we have that already. It only spends if somebody is looking for you anyway. It's super cheap, and you make sure you protect your brand from other competitors who might want to bid on your brand, and also to dominate the search result page, right, with your ads, even if you're there organically. Like, the more the better. If you're there with shopping ads, if you're there with your search ads, if you're there organically, you basically dominate the whole thing, right? And it increases overall conversion probability, and again, it costs basically nothing, right? You can keep it quite efficient. And then later on, like we said, demand gen, full funnel, omni-channel, feed only or with creatives. I like feed only a lot, but it's something you have to test, right? I usually start with feed only, then I do like feed plus creatives, creatives only, just testing what works best. Like, you can test a lot here, and once you get some momentum, you can like really scale this hard, like properly scale this, especially for bigger brands. Yeah, depending on the goal as well, you can use it for retargeting, a mix of new customer acquisition and retargeting, or new customer acquisition only, quite effective as well. And then optional, like depending on the scale, depending on the niche, depending on how far you push it. There are so many things, right? Like multiplying your winning products to pop up with the same product more often within the same search, like super effective, like really dominating the whole listings, right, with your winners. Then advanced demand gen structures, like I said before, like you can test so much here, really, really push it, go for crazy scale with that once it's working. And then also, like, which we don't use with our clients that much because of the niches we're working in, but search generic campaigns where you can work with tutorials, listicles, your high performing keywords, testing a little bit there. Depending on a niche, you can like scale this super hard as well, right? We have some clients where we utilize it quite a lot just because of the nature of the industry they're working in, right? So it works really well because there are like certain keywords, like certain high performing keywords like everybody's looking for. And yeah, so we want to pop up on them, right? Makes sense. But that's basically it in a nutshell. So super simple. Try to break it down as simple as possible with this like 3 phases, and then import the campaign times we use. And that's pretty much how it looks like. And trust me with that, if the listings are optimized properly, if the feed is optimized properly, and you have clean data, and you also give it some time, right, that you're patient enough, it takes some time in this phase 1 and phase 2, 1-2 months, you scale up slowly. Like, there's no way you cannot scale to good numbers, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions about the whole thing, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.